This is Chester's in the Scottish borders. Owners John and Ellie Henderson desperately want to live here, but are trapped in London jobs to pay for its upkeep, while the house crumbles. Can businesswoman Ruth Watson rescue this national treasure from ruin?
You're not going to be able to put a slate in place.
They don't seem to be able to embrace the idea of reality.
It's a non-starter.
Really?
Absolute non-starter.
It's all starting arse about face. I don't give a shit about your spiritual quest.
Don't be too concerned about that.
Oh my God.
Chester's is a Grade 1 listed Georgian country house near Ancram in the Scottish borders. John Henderson inherited his ancestral home from his grandfather 6 years ago. Shortly afterwards, he married Ellie, but they've never found a way to move here. To pay the £20,000 a year bills at Chester's, the Hendersons are stuck in London jobs. John works in advertising, and Ellie runs an actors' training company.
That's my job.
I understand that's your job.
We'd love to live here full-time. We just adore the place. It's a question of money at the end of the day, and how do we make enough to live here and to enjoy living here?
Each weekend, they leave their small flat on a busy city road to make the 350-mile journey to Scotland, a country house they can't afford to live in.
This feels like home. London is an amazing place, but it doesn't feel like home.
Their dream is to leave London and live at Chester's full-time. But this historic house is in peril. The whole of the East Wing is derelict and in dire need of at least £100,000 overhaul.
It's something that I can remember since my earliest childhood. I remember my grandfather and sort of playing with him as his sort of 5, 6-year-old grandson. It's a gift to us. The whole place is absolutely something I'd like to hand on to our children, and it's something that hopefully we can hand on in a better state than we found it.
If Chester's is to survive for the generations to come, it must start paying for itself now. So the Hendersons have called on Ruth Watson for help.
The idea of failing is almost beyond comprehension. It just has to happen.
Even small country houses cost a fortune to maintain, and it would be so sad if these little gems fell into the hands of people who only cared about ownership and not about heritage.
Self-made businesswoman Ruth owns a hotel and restaurant empire in Suffolk.
Yes, sir, the late table, and it's 2 people?
She's turned around the fortunes of numerous crumbling stately homes, including Hentlesham Hall, which she sold for £9 million after a substantial restoration. Ruth's mission is to save these houses for the nation. Today, she's on her way to Chester's.
I'm hoping that Ruth Watson might come up with something, but there is no obvious, we must do that.
Hello.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi. So you're John?
John.
Yes, and Ellie. Hi, how do you do?
Welcome to Chester's.
Thank you very much.
Shall we take a
Yes, please do. I mean, the good thing from my point of view is that it doesn't look huge.
It's not huge. No, it's vaguely manageable.
I'm very happy about that.
In a few days' time, Ruth will give her plan on how to save Chester's. But first, she needs to learn more about the house and its owners.
So this is the dining room, where you can really start to sort of see the history of the house in the portraits.
And you know what? You never painted dining room green. So I'm very intrigued. Did you paint it green or was
Yes, it was actually me.
Ah, right. It's a very unauthentic colour for dining rooms.
It was so dark in here that I actually thought...
You make it more dark?
Make it more dark.
You would never have a green dining room because it actually makes the food look awful.
This portrait here is of Thomas Ogilvy, who was my great-great-great-great-grandfather. And he was actually the man who originally built the house. His son wasn't quite cut to the same cloth and was, I think, a bit of a spendthrift and enjoyed life to the extent that the house was completely mortgaged up to the hilt.
He went off to Edinburgh gambling or something?
Yes, I think something like that.
Eventually, the troubled house passed to John's grandfather. But when he died, he didn't leave it to his daughter.
It was actually jumped straight to me by my grandfather.
Excuse me? As a woman...
Incredibly unpolitically correct.
Can I mean, it's not the royal family here. I mean, what's the problem with...
I think it was just a family where primogeniture ruled, really. And in some ways it makes a lot of sort of sense that...
Yeah, go on, explain that.
To pass it down, I mean, if you look at sort of what happens in France, where you divide estates between all the children equally,
Yeah,
you
that's
actually
not good.
end up with the estates breaking apart. And so at least sticking to one person means it survives intact.
And would we allow a girl to inherit if
Absolutely.
she happened to be firstborn? Could we break
Absolutely.
the law?
We can break the tradition, yes.
That'd be great. Well, I hope it doesn't come to the fact that, you know, somebody has to inherit debt.
John and Ellie are striving to safeguard their house for future generations and pass it on free of debt and decay. Ruth knows an obvious way to kickstart the cash flow they need to begin this process. But will it fit with the Henderson sense of family heritage?
How prepared would you be to say, OK, key weeks, maybe Christmas, maybe a month or two in the summer, half-term holidays, we would let this house out to people who would love to come here and enjoy this beautiful place?
To me, it's a non-starter.
Really?
Absolute non-starter. I would rather, go down with the ship than, have to rent it out on a permanent basis or something like that.
However, John and Ellie are willing to share the house with people they know.
I run a company. It's called the Actors Temple in London's West End, and there's a possibility of, I thought, running courses from here and housing them up in the attic. Right. In a kind of dormitory style. We could probably keep about 12 actors here. Keep them here
like dogs
for a week course, and it would be a retreat for actors, but with a very
kennels for actors.
No, well, a very, very nice kennel if it's going to be a kennel. So
OK. If you're going to have actors in the attics, how does that square with the fact that you wouldn't want a family or some party of 8 people coming and using the house for 2 weeks in August?
I think...
Do they have to just be actors?
No, they don't have to just be actors, but I think they need to be sort of people that we understand, appreciate and sort of can relate to.
But could the Hendersons tempt London's arty set to the borders of Scotland?
The success of Ellie's company testifies to the fact that they do want and appreciate this training.
In London.
And secondly...
In London.
In London. But secondly, the quality of the tutors that they have means that they travel anywhere. I mean, some of your actors are going off to the Caribbean.
I think dragging people to the borders as opposed to sending them to the Caribbean is possibly seen in different light.
As Ruth takes her leave, John and Ellie reveal their dread of rowdy overnight guests.
Obviously, yes, it does have to make money and it does have to pay its own way, but first and foremost, it's absolutely our home.
as much as they pay us, it's not worth the fear of this place being wrecked.
We don't want to do anything wrong to our home or by our home. It's done very well by us and for us, and we're very lucky to have it.
The Hendersons have strong principles. Can Ruth satisfy their sense of duty and make the cash they need to stop Chester's from crumbling away?
I think they have a responsibility to do this up, frankly. I think that you could end up blowing every penny you have.
John and Ellie Henderson own Chester's in the Scottish borders. John's ancestral home and the centrepiece of a 1,000-acre estate, which includes 14 cottages, a huge stable block, and a mile-long stretch of the River Teviot. The Palladian-style house was built in 1790 by local architect William Elliot. With its classic symmetrical frontage and perfectly proportioned rooms, it's a superb example of Georgian architecture at its finest. The house has never been altered or added to, and as such, commands a Grade 1 listing. Chester's is a national treasure. But parts of the house are derelict, and John and Ellie can't afford to move from London to begin the renovation.
I'm determined to come up with a plan that will not only help Ellie and John live in the house that they love, but also others to come and enjoy it.
This morning, businesswoman Ruth Watson is investigating Ellie's idea to host acting courses. Part of Ellie's proposal is to convert the derelict stable block into workshops for her thespians.
Nice rotting staircase to the hayloft. Very fine and very derelict.
It is. I always, the first time I saw this, I thought, what an amazing natural stage area, though.
Yes, it is.
That's something that occurred to me. But as you can see, it's extremely unstable, to say the least, really.
Unstable. Very good. I mean, the problem with all of this is that this must be grade 1 listed, is it?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you're going to get every organisation, all the heritage people, the building regs. I mean, you're not going to be able to put a slate in place unless somebody says it's the right material. Costly.
But really, this is a long-term dream, I think. It's something that...
I like the words long-term and dream.
Do the two go together? Does that...
Keep thinking that way.
So Ellie has romantic and expensive dreams for one crumbling edifice, while John has plans for another. He wants to turn the estate's old dairy into a brewery.
Here we are. So, this is the site of a potential brewery.
Water, access to?
Water, there's mains water supply. The actual heating and boiling elements would all be run on LPG gas, so that's portable.
Sounds expensive, though.
All of it's quite expensive.
And what about access to and from the site? Because we came down a little muddy track. I mean, how would that work?
There would have to be a whole new road.
That's expensive.
No, I mean, this is not a small project.
John plans to spend all his savings and get a grant to restore the derelict proposed brew house. It seems both his and Ellie's business sense is clouded by romantic long-term plans.
There is no point ever in making a huge capital investment unless you know you're going to get a guaranteed return. It's all starting arse about face.
But John has a particularly personal reason for his long-term dream for Chester's. Behind a locked door, Ruth discovers why the house holds such a special place in his heart.
Oh,
Wow.
This is the first time that his grandfather's tack room has been opened in over 25 years.
It would literally have been like this since my grandfather had his accident. He paralysed himself riding, neck downwards.
so he actually left this room, got on his horse and...
Yes,
Didn't come back to it?
Yes.
Because there's a calendar there from 1981.
That was the year he had his accident. No, and I was actually riding with him. I was on a leading rein, and my pony pulled him off. So it was a sort of...
John!
I know, it's all...
It was quite a moment, and I was only 8 years old.
Yeah, well,
at the time,
you don't
but,
have to be
no.
responsible as an 8-year-old for that. But, I mean, that
But this is
presumably
just
brings it all
extraordinary.
back, that whole sense of...
No, it certainly does.
John is sincere about doing the right thing at Chester's. But he and Ellie need to look closer to home before they embark on their grand plans. Parts of the house itself are in urgent need of restoration.
Oh, my God. This is absolutely derelict. You've got huge holes in the roof. Obviously hasn't been touched for 100 years or more. I mean, this is in real bad disarray.
The abandoned East Wing was the bustling living quarters for the cooks, maids and butlers of Chester's in years gone by. The self-contained block consists of 6 generously sized rooms spread over 2 floors. Despite being Grade 1 listed, this wing has been left to disintegrate and could cost as much as £100,000 to renovate.
You can shut the door on things for so long, but after a bit, it's... I I think they have a responsibility to do this up, frankly, and it's going to take a lot of money.
And as well as these rooms, 4 of the estate's 14 cottages need complete renovation. Ruth's also concerned that the accommodation in the main house might not be good enough for paying guests.
I think these must be the attics where John and Ellie want to put their actors. Ellie is expecting people to come up here, actors who are going to pay money. They're going to have to live together, and the bathroom facilities are extremely limited. And I believe she wants to charge money for it. Now, personally, I wouldn't pay.
The next morning, Ruth's off on her travels, looking for ways to accommodate John's wildly expensive plans in a more cost-effective fashion.
I'm just arriving at Traquair, which is Scotland's oldest residence. But more importantly, it's got a very, very popular brewery.
The owner of Traquair, like John, inherited her house, but Catherine Stewart is making money from hers, with a large slice of it coming from beer.
So, what on earth possessed you in the first place to decide to set up a brewery?
Well, it was my father, really, and in the 1960s, when he came here and my mother and father were opening the house to the public, they were rooting through all the old outhouses and came upon this brewery. This is the brew house.
Right. The real essence of the problem for John is that, you know, we've got to establish a cash flow as quickly as possible just to pay for the upkeep of the house. But I don't want him to go investing literally £250,000 in a venture that may actually prove to be more of a gamble than a calculated gamble.
I can't remember offhand how many microbreweries there are in Scotland, but there's a large number.
Do you think that with all the microbreweries you've mentioned, that any of them would have spare capacity so that instead of him spending money on setup costs, he could actually take his barley and hops and things and they would make it for him?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's certainly a really good option. I mean, happy to do it here.
Are you?
We'd always do it.
Ruth's found a way to get John's beer into the bottle without him having to build a brewery. Now all she has to do is persuade him it's a good idea. After 3 days in the Borders, it's time for Ruth to deliver her plan on how to make Chester's profitable. She wants to generate £20,000 a year to pay the bills and find a substantial part of the £100,000 needed for the renovation of the East Wing.
Hello.
Only with a viable income can John and Ellie finally leave London to fulfil their responsibilities at Chester's.
At the end of the day, you have a duty to this house. Mm-hmm. It is crumbling. There are parts which are actually falling down. Yes. And I think if you want to have the joy of living here, I'm afraid you've got to have some of the pain of it. And you really do have to spend money on those areas that are falling down.
As well as the derelict wing, John has those 4 vacant cottages also in need of modernisation. Ruth thinks the empty cottages could be restored and let out for income. And she's got an idea how both the wing and the cottages could be renovated more economically.
What I also would like to commend to you the thought of is actually employing a full-time maintenance person who's got good building skills. It saves a fortune. And it also means that they're on your payroll, you can deploy them where you want.
Despite her reservations, Ruth wants to allow the Hendersons to pursue their favourite ideas.
Now, acting.
Yes.
What I would like to charge you with, Ellie,
Yes.
is actually doing a trial, a genuine call to action for a group of people who you don't know to come and trial it, so that you can see whether it's actually going to work and find out all the hiccups before you put all your eggs in that basket. Now, John, your brewery. Do not invest this amount of money in it. You don't need to do it. You can still have your own beer, you can still use your own barley, but what you can do is you can actually go and use the free capacity that a lot of the microbreweries that are around, and there are a lot of them, competition, have to offer. It means you don't have to dive in at the deep end. You can go in the shallow end and just see how it all pans out. Because the one thing that nobody ever does, John, ever in business, is to invest in something using all their capital and borrowed capital, which is actually just a gamble. And at the moment, that brew house is a gamble. I think that you could end up blowing every penny you have for absolutely nothing and actually being in just as pile a state and just as much as a wastrel as the ancestor. While I very much want John and Ellie to trial both the Actors Studio and the beer, the fact of the matter is I don't believe the Actors Studio by itself will ever provide them with a level of income to allow them to leave London and live at Chester's full time. As for the brewery, it may be a success, but it's a very, very perilous project, and it's a long-term project that will only provide an income in 3 or 4 years' time. So in the intermediary period, what are they going to live on? I think we need to find some other plans.
It's April in London. Desperate to prove that their romantic ideas can become financial successes, the Hendersons have sprung into action. With a month to go until the acting course trial at Chester's, Ellie and her colleagues have been busy recruiting willing participants.
We didn't have to wait very long for the responses to come in, but it's sold. It's great.
You've got actors that are getting this amazing experience.
Yeah.
The actors will be paying to join a 5-day Shakespeare workshop using The Merchant of Venice as their text.
Surroundings, and it's like, that is a hell of an experience.
It's getting people to realise that when you do have the space, use it.
And the Hendersons have been at Chester's every weekend, working hard to bring the attic accommodation up to scratch before the actors arrive.
We are decorating and carpeting and plastering and doing it all ourselves. It's just the two of us. We are quite exhausted, actually. But it's a great thing to be able to kind of see that you've achieved that, so we're pleased we've done it.
Across town at the Hendersons' flat, John's also working hard marketing his beer with the help of Nigel, an old friend from advertising.
I think the important thing is the plough to pint idea that you've been talking about.
It's very modern, it's about local food, it's about provenance, it's not sort of some sort of, old Badger's toenail, sort of traditional, old school sort of real ale. It's about sort of, bringing sort of current food and drink sort of to the fore.
As a copywriter, it's comfortable territory.
That's great.
The way this is sort of developed is into something like this.
That gets the journey from the field to the pint across much more clearly.
Everything about it has come from, Chester's and the Scottish Borders Brewery.
Yeah.
So wherever you are in the country, whether it be just up the road or in London, this is actually being brought to you from the Scottish Borders.
Great stuff. I love it.
But John is now so taken with his plough to pint ethos that he passionately believes his beer must be produced entirely at Chester's.
Hello, John. Hi.
How are you?
Nice to see you.
He meets Ruth at his local pub in London to tell her he doesn't want to trial his beer at another brewery.
I very much want this to be tied in to the estate. I want it to be a part of the estate. I want people to be able to walk around the brewery and go, look, there's the barley growing in the fields. There are the cows that are going to eat the spent grains. There's the wastewater that's going on in the fields as fertiliser now. That it's a very much a holistic project, and it's all about provenance.
Do you think you've worked too long in advertising?
I don't know about that. Possibly, yeah.
It's all very, very green and cute. But you want to do something there with integrity and which you can make a product from and which is going to, if you like, fill your soul with sunshine.
Yes, that's exactly what it's about.
It's obvious that John is not going to go ahead with the trial because he's so hung up about the provenance of the barley. But the fact is that any brewery will take 2 or 3 years, maybe even 4, from start-up to possible profit. So what they're left with is revenue from the acting courses. And I really don't see that this is ever going to be enough to support both them and the house and its major repairs.
With the brewery trial over before it's begun, will the Hendersons ever make Chester's pay for itself?
You have a dream, I have a problem. These people are on a course of optimistic idealism, and I don't agree with it.
It's the first day of the actors' course at Chester's, the Georgian mansion in the Scottish borders owned by John and Ellie Henderson. Businesswoman Ruth Watson has been charged with making Chester's profitable.
I'm back up in the very damp Scottish borders to come and see this actors' studio trial that John and Ellie are putting on. There's a lot of questions there about whether it's viable. Is the income really going to be sufficient to give them a livelihood? Are the actors going to find the accommodation good enough? But the real problem is that John and Ellie are such idealists. They come from London, they've got this dream, this vision of living in the borders. I don't think they've really thought through where the money's going to come from to enable them to both live and to do up that house.
I can't bear it. You drive me up the fucking wall.
John and Ellie are preparing food for the 10 actors who will share their house for the next 5 days.
I want you to come into my lair. I want you to come into your lair.
I want you to come into my lair.
They're determined to impress their guests, so the actors' grapevine will be buzzing with news of their experiences at Chester's. They also need to convince Ruth this is going to be a money spinner. The actors arrived last night, and while they enjoy lunch, Ruth wants to see what the Hendersons have done to turn the empty attic into cosy digs worthy of the course fees.
How long has this all been taking? Have you been up a lot?
How long has it been taking? We've been up most weekends.
Yeah.
In fact, well, every weekend, yeah to be honest. So it's taken a lot of work, and it's been John and I. Apart from the plumber who put in the new bathroom, it's been just constantly he and I up here doing all the work. Yeah, so it's actually been really quite an accomplishment, I think. So this is...
Oh, new bathroom.
The new bathroom.
Oh, very good, very good. Very sensible, keep it very, low cost and uncomplicated, I think is the way to go. But I just know that people who, are in professions that you do perspire and do sweat tend to like to, run under a shower rather than having a long lazy bath. So it's just something to bear in mind.
So this is the other couple of areas.
Oh, no, I remember this.
Yeah.
This is where we stood and looked about how many people you were going to stack up and whether they were going to mind sharing accommodation.
That's right, yeah.
And they're fine about it.
Absolutely fine. It seems to be going very well.
So what did you do about beds? Oh, very... They're sort of futon-y beds.
Yes. Apparently very comfortable. I've laid down in one briefly, but...
Well, I think, what I think you've done that's very clever is that they're big single beds, aren't they? So it's not like being in a hospital, which is really good.
Ruth approves of the accommodation, but is still concerned that the acting school is based on an unrealistic romantic vision and not on sound business sense.
But I think it's also part of yours and John's kind of, if you like, spiritual quest. I mean, which I have some reservations about, because I do think it's a degree of idealism which may not provide enough sheer moolah. I don't give a shit about your spiritual quest. I mean, I've got to be,
I don't think it's a spiritual quest, to be honest. No, I don't. No, I think we're all actually seeking to be fulfilled, but it's not a deep spiritual quest. It's actually, I mean, I'm under no kind of illusion about what it is that we're doing here, and it's vitally important to us both to keep this going. So it's not some little thing that we're playing about with. So don't be too concerned about that.
And as further proof that the Hendersons are taking Chester's seriously, John has followed Ruth's advice and employed a handyman to renovate his vacant cottages, and eventually that derelict wing.
So this is one of the 14 cottages on the estate.
It is.
Yeah.
And
And
the first
this-
one that we're really starting to have a go at.
That's fantastic. I mean, it certainly looks incredibly pretty from what I
Well, no,
saw
it's very
outside.
exciting, actually, to see it happening.
Hi. Hello, Craig. Yes?
Yes.
I'm Ruth. How do you do?
meeting you.
How do you do? I think you know.
We know each other.
Yeah.
All
So,
buddies.
John, I mean, we talked, didn't we, about doing up some of the houses and, most importantly, getting a maintenance chap who could do it for you.
This is he, yeah.
This is
no,
he.
which is fantastic, actually, because it's sort of, this is the first cottage that we've started on, and it's really nice, actually, to see something happening.
Yes,
And
positive.
actually progress being made, and, you know, things are beginning to sort of take shape and change. So,
Yeah. How long do you think before it's ready for rental?
ask the man.
I would say this one would be a couple of months, 2 to 3 months.
And are you looking at this as cottage holiday rentals? Are you looking
No,
at it as long-term rental?
I think this would be long-term rental,
Yeah.
just because I think it's not the perfect holiday cottage, but I think as a long-term rental cottage, it would be great.
When the cottages are renovated, they should generate a few £1,000s a year. But that's not enough for John and Ellie to move to Chester's. They're hoping the bulk of the income will come from the actors' courses.
Her name is Portia.
So has the trial been a financial success?
Where money is, and I no question make, I'll have it on my trust or for my sake. Come on! Let's do it.
Now, how much are you charging per student?
Well, we know you suggested 600, and considering this is a trial course and we want to see and kind of learn from it, and we decided to charge 450.
No, I think that's fine to do a discounted rate if it's, you know, you're right, it's a trial. So, what are the costs so far?
Well, food.
Yeah.
We're doing the catering this time,
Yeah.
which is going well.
Yeah.
It's tiring.
Do you know how
but it's
many
going well.
hundreds of pounds?
Budgeted for sort of 750, and I think that's pretty much
About
where
right.
we're going to be. We might be just
But
under,
it's your
actually.
labour costs at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, rather
Yeah.
than somebody else's,
Yeah.
yeah. What about other expenses?
Well, there's the sort of tutors' costs as well.
How much?
Another sort of 500, 600 on top of that.
Right.
And then you've got the fact that we're splitting the proceeds 50-50 between the house and Ellie's
Actors
company,
Temple,
the Actors Temple, as they're providing tutors and the people and that sort of thing.
So you might end up with about £1,200
12
for
to
yourself?
1,500 for the week.
Right.
Yeah. Or
okay.
5 nights, as it is.
Well, that's better than a kick in the head, isn't it?
It is.
How many of these courses per year would you see yourself doing? Because I don't think you'd be able to get 42 or whatever, do you, on a weekly basis?
I don't think we'd want to either. I think, you know, we'd be looking at maybe doing one a month.
Right,
say.
so 12.
So it's not, you know, we're not going to turn ourselves over completely.
I'm just turning that back to income, you know, £12,000, £14,000 a year, nothing like what you're earning at the moment.
No.
Well, it's it will be a little bit more than that. It'll be more like sort of 20,000 a year.
Might be slightly on the rich side on there, but anyway.
Wouldn't be you if you weren't being a little bit suspicious.
No, this is true. I'm very cynical about your costings, you should know that.
Or to find both, or bring your latter hazard back again and thankfully rest better of the first. You know me well. And herein I spend but time to whine about my love with circumstance.
I'm very concerned that John and Ellie will not be diverted from their original thoughts and plans. They don't seem to be able to embrace the idea of reality. It's all idealistic. It's all sort of a way with the fairies, really. They come from London. They think they're going to replace their income here, living in this house, which demands so much money spent on it. I don't think this is going to work. I don't think they're going to realise £20,000 from the Actors Studio over the course of a year. I think it's going to be more like 14,000, 16,000. Is VAT involved in it? I don't know. I just know that these people are on a course of optimistic idealism, and I don't agree with it.
The actors' courses might pay the household bills, but they won't provide all the income the Hendersons need. Ruth has to come up with a new plan for Chester's, and quickly. The next morning, Ruth is back with a fresh idea. Although the Hendersons don't want overnight guests trashing Chester's, Ruth still believes the only way to secure their future and save their crumbling house is by letting it out. She thinks day hire rather than long lets could be the way forward. The country house day hire business is worth 20 million a year in Scotland alone. Corporate team building, office away days and private meetings could all be accommodated at Chester's. It's an attractive and secluded location with extensive grounds and spacious rooms. Joanna Goddard is a specialist in the corporate hire of historic properties. Ruth asks her how day hire could work for the Hendersons.
The biggest priority for most of our owners, that it remains the home first and foremost, and that's what they want to retain.
Right.
So it has to be carefully balanced when we're talking about hiring out. And for every property, that's a different requirement and different needs.
So what sort of price are we looking at then for a day hire?
For a day hire, you can get between £800 and £1,000, depending on
That's not to
the
be
requirement.
sneezed at, is it?
Well, exactly, and a lot of that would be probably outside activity for team building,
Yeah.
and you need to factor in providing lunch or dinner.
Yes.
And if that's a small group of 6 or 8, it's fairly straightforward. If it's a larger group, there'd be an additional charge per head to cover the greater catering costs of that. But it allows John and Ellie to really explore what they can achieve here on a sort of day basis, and then when they're more comfortable with that, then they can look at going into
so there's
overnight.
not a huge commitment at the outset. Then you're not asking them to invest millions of pounds in doing the
Not
property
at
up,
all.
and you're not asking them to take people for great chunks of time.
That's right, because it's so important we help support our owners explore diversification, and there's no pressure to push them into it because it is their home.
And you could genuinely recommend Chester's to them?
Absolutely, yes. I think it's the stunning sense of arrival, which is always one of the key things we look for. It feels remote, but actually it's pretty accessible.
Joanna is confident Chester's would make money as a day hire venue. Now all Ruth has to do is persuade John and Ellie to ease their restrictions on who they allow into their home.
John and Ellie, you have a dream, I have a problem. And the problem is this. Let's say we've got, this year, from now on, from 12 months from now, we've got 20 grand. Let's be generous about the actors studio, and assuming it's filled up every single moment of the time.
Yeah.
Your heating, lighting costs, my understanding, are about 20 grand.
Yeah.
So that gets rid of that one.
Yeah.
OK. Where else is the money going to come from? Decorous people from the corporate world will come and spend a day here without accommodation, without you requiring to do anything to the building. All this gentle shabbiness would absolutely appeal to the kind of market. And for that, you can get £800 to £1,000 a day.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah, completely up for that.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
you would do
the problem
that?
we've always had about that is the drunken people sort of flailing around and staying overnight.
Don't need to. Now, so you're saying to me, I'm noting this, you're saying to me that you're quite happy to, can we do another trial? Because that's what I'd like to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's do a corporate day, see that people behave nicely, that they don't cause you any problems. I know that you can get at least 40 and up to 100 days a year in this locality for this kind of house.
That would be absolutely staggering.
I mean, that just changes the whole picture, doesn't
Yes,
it?
absolutely. I just didn't know that sort of thing existed. So if it does, then that would be fantastic, really.
Yeah.
Although the Hendersons are very happy to give day hire a try, they're still equally cautious about protecting their heritage.
I don't think there's an easy answer to how the place should be run or how it should be managed or how we should generate the revenue that we need or how we should sort of create the place that we want. I think sort of Ruth has got a distinct impression that I'm a romantic about everything, and I think to some extent, yes, that's true. But whatever we do here, I'd like to leave a sort of really positive mark on the place, and I don't want to sort of either rush into something just for the sake of it. I would like to sort of really see that it fits with what we believe this place is about.
It's July. The first day hire trial is taking place at Chester's tomorrow morning.
Shall we do it?
Yeah. Go on.
Tomorrow's event is corporate team building, based on role-playing as secret agents. Unlike for the actors course, there's very little preparation needed from the hosts.
Hi, Eddie. It's John Henderson. How you doing?
But the Hendersons are desperate for the day to be a success and want to check that everything's in place.
Hiya, how you doing?
Good. Have you spoken to Eddie?
I just spoke to Eddie, yes. And it all sounds very easy, actually. They're just bringing everything that they need
Okay.
So it's all quite straightforward. We just got to provide the sort of cutlery for 2 courses for the lunch, and that's it.
But John remains unconvinced that the event is going to work out.
This is something that Ruth suggested, and it's sort of, you know, her and Joanna are very much sort of coordinating the whole thing, and so hopefully it won't be too stressful, as it were, and, you know, we can just sort of sit back and see how it all pans out.
We have ordered kind of a few things just in case, like tea and coffee flasks and things like that, but, you know, if they're used to doing these kind of events, then they should have everything covered. But we're pretty good in crises as well, so if we need to do anything, then we can.
But I'm sure something will happen, something will kick off or go wrong or something. But I'm sure it'll be fine, actually. No, they sound like a really nice bunch of people, and it sounds like a really interesting thing. And I think, you know, if you sort of want somewhere to rush around and be a spy, then this is probably as good a place as any, so we'll see how it goes.
John and Ellie are hoping day hire could be the key to solving their financial problems, without upsetting their sense of loyalty to John's ancestral home. After several attempts to find an income for Chester's, everything is now resting on tomorrow's event. But will John and Ellie buy into Ruth's grand plan?
I think you have both been very guarded.
We as people have been on trial. Do we deserve it? Are we selfish?
It's the morning of the first corporate hire day at Chester's in the Scottish borders. John and Ellie Henderson are making the final preparations for what they hope will provide them with the regular income they need to leave their London lives behind.
I've done 2.
Businesswoman Ruth Watson is back in Scotland to see if her rescue plan for Chester's has worked.
John and Ellie are hosting a corporate team building day, and given that they don't want anyone in the house apart from actors, they might find it very painful. I really hope they don't, because it could be such a good source of income for them.
So today's spy hunt game is a crucial test to see if John and Ellie are happy sharing their house with strangers.
So do you all know each other then?
Despite their concerns, the Hendersons are making an effort to welcome their 20 corporate guests, making tea, mingling, and dressing up for the occasion.
Hello. Hi, Ellie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Very good.
Good.
So how are things generally going?
Good.
Yes.
It was sort of quite nice not to have to organise this one ourselves for a change.
That's a good point, actually, isn't it? They just
Absolutely.
descend on you and
A
you
little
don't
less
have to...
hectic than
Yeah.
The mission has begun.
I am Agent 75. I am the head of intelligence for the Spy Hunt organisation.
And from not wanting any strangers in their house, the Hendersons now have 20 of them, licensed to roam all over Chester's.
Hi, what's your name?
Ben.
Oh, mademoiselle.
In return for opening their house, the Hendersons are receiving £600 for this half-day hire, and could expect to earn up to £1,000 for each full day.
The next part of your mission.
Corporate hire agent Joanna has been called in to reassure them it's a good idea.
Your best house, how much income does it generate a year for its owners?
They can turn, I think, probably around 300,000 a year is one of the most successful I've worked with.
That's quite a nice figure.
300,000 is a lot of money, but that is a very established venue that has grown over the years and now has a dedicated
But
market.
even if it's 100,000, it's still not bad, is it?
Yeah.
No.
How much for the derelict wing, do you think?
I think we need to do about 100 of these, probably, somewhere in that region, which wouldn't be impossible.
And Joanna points out that John and Ellie could actually turn their derelict wing into a selling point while earning money for the restoration.
A lot of corporates these days are very much focused on corporate social responsibility and ethical purchasing. So if they're going to spend a lot on regular events or regular meeting room hire, then if they choose Chester's, a good way of keeping in touch with clients as well is just to let them know that, you know, once they've visited that, the wing has started, the works on the wings have started, or, you know, such and such has been purchased. And if you discuss that when they were there, keeping in touch with them, they feel they are contributing to restoring, you know, part of our heritage.
Could be that. That could be your whole thing, is the wing fund. Yes. And actually have the red thermometer somewhere and just they can see that they're helping restore.
Day hire could reap the Hendersons' rich rewards.
Did you enjoy that?
If they're happy to continue with it.
Okay, good. In first place, odd jobs.
Is it right that it's all over?
Yes,
Apparently
it is.
so.
It's done. Brand new.
2 hours in?
I know. Well, I think one team were doing particularly well, and I don't know. And
This is money-forward rope. We book them immediately.
we're loving it. So.
I know, done by lunchtime. It's fantastic.
So this could be the way to go.
It could be a winner.
Could well be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well done. Well worth the effort, I hope.
At last, Ruth has found a rich source of easy revenue that meets with John and Ellie's approval. Building up the day hire events could help the Hendersons finally fulfill their dream of living at Chester's.
For me, the big thing is this house, and I think we actually have come some way from John and yours original comment, which was you couldn't bear to share it with anybody other than actors, because today has been a demonstration that actually it wasn't such a horrible experience having
No, it was great.
But before she leaves, Ruth wants to make an observation.
You were quite precious at the beginning, I have to say this. You know, and part of me understood it, but part of me also said, you know, you have actually got to open up a little bit about this. I think you have both been very guarded for possibly different reasons.
Well, I think, I mean, a lot of that's because it's felt very much like a trial, and that we as people have been on trial. Do we deserve it? Are we selfish? All this sort of thing. And I think, you know, it's very much, to us, felt like that.
I'm really heartened to hear your response and your vigorous response as well, because actually I think by opening up yourselves to the things that have been thrown at you, you know, actually it is going to make you stronger. And I think you have taken on board what it really means to live here and what you might have to sacrifice to live here.
Well, I think this whole thing has been about turning talk into commitment. And once, you know, I think we've made that transition from just, you know, dreaming, talking, saying we will do this, to actually doing it and committing to do it. And I think that's going to make a huge, hopefully, difference to everything.
Yeah. And so how long before you're living here?
I think
within the year.
Within the year, certainly, and hopefully, possibly by Christmas.
So the heir of Chester's and his wife will be moving in very shortly.
Well, yes.
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 You could say that. Yes, absolutely.